Watch closely. No pose, no smile, just a presence. When she stepped through the curtain, nothing about her asked for attention, yet everything demanded it. No raised arms, no dramatic pause for the camera. She walked forward as if the world behind her no longer existed. The lights didn't change, the music didn't explode, and still, the arena shifted. You could feel it before you understood it. A quiet traveled faster than noise ever could. Fans leaned forward without realizing why. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Phones hovered, unsure whether this moment wanted to be recorded or respected. She reached the ring and stopped. That was it. No signal, no gesture, just stillness. In a place built on motion, her refusal to perform felt louder than any entrance before her. The audience waited for something familiar, something rehearsed. It never came. Instead, there was a strange recognition spreading through the seats, the kind you feel when you know something matters but can't explain why. Some people cheered out of instinct, others stayed silent, sensing that sound might break something fragile forming in the air. Commentators tried to speak, but their voices felt distant, almost intrusive. What were they supposed to explain? There was no storyline cue, no obvious emotion to label. She wasn't angry, she wasn't triumphant, she wasn't inviting sympathy. She simply existed, fully and unapologetically. That confused people. Wrestling had taught them how to react. This moment asked them to feel instead. Backstage, monitors flickered with the same image. Producers leaned closer. Agents stopped pacing. Even people who had seen thousands of entrances felt unsettled, not because it was dramatic, but because it wasn't. It broke an unspoken rule. Everyone there understood that the ring was a place to project, to exaggerate, to sell. Her silence refused all of that. It didn't sell. It didn't explain. It waited. In the crowd, a child asked her parent why the wrestler looked sad. The parent didn't answer because sadness didn't quite fit. Neither did strength. What stood in the ring felt heavier than emotion. It felt like memory, like something unresolved, walking into the light without permission. Some fans later said they felt seen. Others said they felt uncomfortable. Both were true. When she finally lifted her head, there was no smile waiting underneath, just eyes steady enough to hold an entire arena in place. In that instant, WWE didn't witness a performance. It witnessed a fracture. A reminder that not everything powerful needs to announce itself. Sometimes, the most disruptive moments arrive quietly, refuse to explain, and leave everyone else to deal with the aftermath. The reaction didn't explode, it rippled. That was what made it dangerous. Instead of a single roar, there were waves of uncertainty rolling through the crowd. People looked at each other, searching for confirmation on how to feel. Wrestling audiences are trained. They know when to cheer, when to boo, when to wait. This time, the cues were missing. Some clapped softly, unsure. Others crossed their arms. A few wiped their eyes without understanding why. The moment didn't unite them. It exposed them. Online, the clip spread within minutes. Not because of spectacle, but because of discomfort. Fans replayed it again and again, trying to find the hidden message. Was she hurt? Some asked. Is this a character change? Others speculated, but the most repeated comment was simpler and more honest. I felt something. No one could agree on what that something was, and that scared people more than certainty ever could. Inside the arena, chants tried to start and failed. They didn't fit. Her stillness swallowed them whole. Even the ring announcer hesitated before speaking, voice softer than usual, as if volume itself would be disrespectful. Cameras searched for close-ups, then pulled back, unsure whether intimacy was allowed. Every instinct of production clashed with the moment unfolding naturally. Backstage, tension crept in quietly. Some veterans nodded with approval, recognizing a rare authenticity. Others frowned, worried about control. Wrestling thrives on structure, on beats and timing. This had none. It couldn't be edited, couldn't be guided once it began. That loss of control unsettled people who built careers on managing chaos. The crowd eventually reacted the only way it could. It listened. Silence became participation. For once, the audience wasn't being led. They were witnessing. When she left the ring, the same way she entered, without acknowledgement, the applause came late, hesitant, almost apologetic. People stood not because they were told to, but because sitting felt wrong. After the show, fans lingered longer than usual. Exits were slower, conversations deeper. Strangers discussed what they had just seen, like it was a shared secret. Some felt inspired, some felt uneasy. A few felt angry, accusing the moment of being self-indulgent, but no one felt indifferent. That was the real reaction, the one that couldn't be measured or managed. By the next morning, headlines tried to define it. Words like bold, awkward, and genius competed for dominance. None of them landed, because what happened wasn't designed to be consumed quickly. It stayed with people, resurfacing during quiet moments, a pause in the day, a replay before sleep. The crowd didn't leave with answers. They left carrying the weight of a question they didn't know they needed to ask. Behind the curtain, calm was an illusion. The moment the cameras cut away, conversations ignited. Some were whispers, others weren't. Producers debated intent. Writers flipped through notes that suddenly felt irrelevant. Had this been approved? Had it been planned? No one had a clear answer, and that uncertainty created friction. Wrestling is built on collaboration, but collaboration depends on trust. Silence, especially unscripted silence, can feel like rebellion. She walked past the production area without stopping. No apology, no explanation. That alone became a statement. A senior agent finally spoke, not angry, just concerned. What was that? The question hung unanswered, because whatever it was, it couldn't be reduced to a sentence. To explain it would be to tame it. And once tamed, it would lose the very thing that made it matter. Some backstage saw opportunity. They talked about depth, about evolution, about audiences craving something real. Others saw risk. Sponsors prefer clarity. Executives prefer predictability. Viral moments are useful, but only when they can be controlled. This one refused to be owned. It belonged to the crowd now, and that frightened people whose job was ownership. In the locker room, reactions were split. Younger talent watched quietly, absorbing the lesson without naming it. Veterans remembered times when wrestling felt less manufactured, when moments bled through the cracks of planning. One wrestler muttered that it reminded them why they fell in love with the business. Another warned that moments like this rarely go unpunished. Phones buzzed. Messages from management grew more urgent. Meetings were scheduled before the show even ended. What was meant to be discussed wasn't her performance, but her restraint. Why didn't she smile? Why didn't she pose? Why didn't she give the crowd what they expected? Those questions revealed more than the answers ever could. They exposed an industry uncomfortable with quiet confidence. And yet, amid the tension, something shifted. People started speaking softer, listening more. The chaos didn't escalate, it slowed, as if the stillness from the ring had followed her backstage, forcing everyone to move at its pace. For a brief moment, the machine hesitated. She sat alone later, lacing her boots in reverse. Someone asked if she was okay. She nodded. That was all. No triumph, no regret, just acceptance. She knew what she had done, not strategically, not defiantly. She had told the truth in the only language that felt honest to her, and truth, once released, cannot be recalled. By the end of the night, no decision had been made. No punishment announced, no praise either. Just an understanding that something had changed. The curtain had closed, but the impact hadn't. Wrestling had been reminded that beneath the lights and scripts, there is still a human heartbeat, and sometimes, letting it be heard without decoration is the most disruptive act of all. Outside the arena, the moment continued its journey. Media outlets dissected it from every angle, but the most powerful reactions came from those who knew her before the cameras did. Family members watched the clip in quiet rooms, recognizing something familiar in her posture. They saw the child who learned early not to perform emotions for approval, the teenager who carried expectations without complaint, the professional who understood that legacy can be both armor and burden. Her name had always come with history. Comparisons followed her everywhere, whispered and shouted alike. Smiles were expected. Gratitude was assumed. When she refused both, it wasn't rejection. It was relief. A decision to stop carrying everyone else's version of who she should be. Fans with similar pressures felt it instantly. Messages poured in, not about wrestling, but about life. People wrote about workplaces where silence was mistaken for weakness. About families where being strong meant being loud. They didn't see a superstar in that ring. They saw themselves standing still, finally allowed to exist without explanation. Of course, not everyone understood. Critics accused her of arrogance, of thinking she was above the audience. But those accusations revealed more about expectation than intent. Wrestling has always celebrated excess, bigger emotions, louder reactions, clear heroes and villains. Her moment blurred those lines, and ambiguity makes people uncomfortable. At home, she avoided the noise. No interviews, no statements, just space. Sometimes legacy demands response. Other times, it demands patience. Her family respected that. They knew that silence had always been her way of processing the world. It wasn't absence. It was presence turned inward. As days passed, the moment aged instead of fading. It grew heavier, richer, like a song you don't appreciate until years later. Fans began to reinterpret it. Not as a rebellion, but as a reminder that strength doesn't always announce itself. That impact doesn't require permission. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do in a performance-driven world is refuse to perform. The industry slowly adjusted. Storylines were rewritten, expectations softened. Not because of pressure, but because something genuine had slipped through. And once audiences taste that, pretending otherwise becomes difficult. Her silence had started a conversation no one could fully control. She returned again weeks later, another entrance, another walk. This time, the crowd didn't wait for a smile. They didn't ask for a pose. They understood, and in that understanding, the silence spoke louder than ever. Years from now, people will still argue about that night. Some will say, it changed nothing. Others will insist it changed everything. The truth will sit quietly between those extremes, just like she did in the ring. Because the moment was never about revolution. It was about permission. Permission to exist without explanation. Permission to feel without performance. Wrestling will continue to evolve. New stars will rise, louder moments will come, bigger entrances, brighter lights. But every so often, someone will pause. And when they do, the crowd will remember. Not consciously, not with words, but with a feeling. A recognition that stillness can be power if you let it be. The viral clip will lose its edge eventually. Algorithms move on. Attention shifts. But meaning doesn't disappear that easily. It settles. It waits. It shows up in unexpected places. In a fan choosing not to cheer immediately, in a performer daring to slow down, in an industry learning reluctantly, that authenticity cannot be scripted. The twist isn't that she planned it, or that management approved it later, or that it led to titles or headlines. The twist is simpler. The moment didn't belong to her at all. It belonged to everyone who saw themselves reflected in that silence. Everyone who has been told to smile more, to pose. When she didn't smile, WWE felt it. Not as shock, not as rebellion, but as truth pressing gently against a world built on noise. And for a brief, unforgettable moment, the noise listened.